Yes, students, a very good morning and welcome to the class today. I hope you all are doing well. How's everything going on? And now, coming back to the studies, you can see on the screen, it's written chapter number 6, My Childhood. This is a chapter from the book Beehive. Okay, so we have to do it today. So My Childhood is a very interesting chapter about APJ Abdul Kalam ji. आप सब जानते हैं who is APJ Abdul Kalam ji? Yes, you all know. He was our 11th president in 2002. Okay, so in his autobiography Wings of Fire, he speaks of his childhood, and from that we have got this chapter which is named My Childhood. So before you read, just think about the 3 points given. Then I'll just give you the conceptualization of the chapter, and after that we'll do it line by line or text to text. So can you think of any scientist who have also been a statesman? APJ Abdul Kalam, whose projects in space, defense and nuclear technology guided India into the 21st century, became our 11th president in 2002. And in his autobiography, Wings of Fire, he speaks of his childhood. Yes. Okay, so now we'll move on to the conceptualization of the chapter by APJ Abdul Kalam. My Childhood, it is an extract that is taken from autobiographical book, Wings of Fire. This book is written by who? APJ Abdul Kalam. Here, Dr. Kalam, who was one of the greatest scientists of India and also the 11th president of India. In this, he talks about his childhood days. And he was born in 1931 at Rameshwaram. Now, talking about his childhood, the information that he provides us with is that his father's name was Jainulabdin and mother's name was Ashiyamma. Both his parents were very generous and very kind, and so was their son, who was our APJ Abdul Kalam son. Okay. Now, they were not very rich. They provided a secure childhood to their children. Kalam was greatly influenced by his parents, teachers, and friends. He inherited honesty and self-discipline from his father and faith in goodness and deep kindness from his mother. Now, we all know that as a children, we always have some qualities of our parents in us. We imbibe the qualities from them. जैसे किसी में अपने फादर की एक कोई क्वालिटी होती है, किसी में अपने मदर की कोई क्वालिटी होती है. So we are, we are children of our parents and we have qualities of our parents in us. So same thing is here that APJ Abdul Kalam Sahab, he also has some qualities from his father and some qualities from his mother. So the qualities that he imbibed from his father are honesty and self-discipline. His father was a very honest person and he believes in honesty. And secondly, he was a very self-disciplined person and he wants his son to be the same. And faith in goodness and deep kindness. And another two qualities that you should have faith in goodness. Goodness में हमेशा आपकी faith होनी चाहिए, भरोसा रखो अच्छाई पे. And secondly, there should be a deep kindness somewhere inside your heart. There should be kindness. So these two things he has imbibed from his mother. So two things from the father and two things from the mother. So these are the four qualities that he has. Okay. Now see, his family lived in an ancestral house on the mosque. उनकी जो फैमिली थी वो कहाँ रहती थी? The family lived in an ancestral house, जो पूर्वजों का घर होता है ना, ancestral house, वहाँ पे on the mosque street. ठीक है, एक mosque street थी, वहाँ पे वो लोग रहते थे. And many outsiders ate with the family every day. हर रोज it is said that the house is very lucky one and the house is always going to be very prosperous. अगर वहाँ पे रेगुलरली एक कोई ना कोई बाहर का इंसान अगर हमारे घर पे खाना खाता है तो our house is a very lucky house, we say. So there were many outsiders who ate every day at Kalam Saab's house, and his journey from a middle class family in Rameshwaram to the president's house was not a smooth ride. वो इतनी smooth ride नहीं थी. He struggled hard. He struggled very hard and faced all challenges of life. And he struggled really very hard and he faced all the challenges of the life. सारे life के जितने challenges है ना, he has faced. ठीक है? And his cousin Samsuddin, who distributed newspaper, employed Abdul Kalam as a helping hand. And देखो Abdul Kalam साहब president बने, but in the earlier part of his life वो क्या काम करते थे देखा आपने? उनके कजन थे शमसुद्दीन. He has employed Abdul Kalam as a helping hand in his work. And what was his work? His work was to distribute the newspapers. So Abdul Kalam साहब एक समय में newspapers distribute करने का काम करते थे. In this way, we can say the child Abdul earned his first wages. First wage उन्होंने ये newspapers distribute करके earn किए. In his childhood, he had three very close friends of his, three best friends we can say. क्या नाम था उन फ्रेंड्स का? इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. ये आपके एमसीक्यूज में डेफिनेटली आ सकता है, तो यू शुड कीप इट इन योर माइंड. थ्री फ्रेंड्स, दैट इज रामानंद शास्त्री, अरविंदन एंड शिव प्रकाशन. ओके, द नेम्स आर, आई एम गोइंग टू रिपीट इट, रामानंद शास्त्री, अरविंदन एंड शिव प्रकाशन. कलाम स्टडीड इन द 5th स्टैंडर्ड एट रामेश्वरम एलिमेंट्री स्कूल. वंस एक बार उनके न्यू टीचर आए क्लास में, and Abdul was sitting with his friend Ramananda Shastri in the front row, and the new teacher could not tolerate a Hindu priest's son sitting with a Muslim boy. No, ये teacher को tolerate नहीं हुआ. He asked Abdul to stand up and go and sit on the last bench. And वो बहुत sad हो गए इस चीज में, और इसीलिए उनके friend भी बहुत sad हो गए, because ऐसी चीज हम नहीं expect करते ना. आज हम भी है, हमारा अगर 10 फ्रेंड्स का फ्रेंड सर्कल है, all belong to different sections of the society. हमारे लिए वो सिर्फ एक ही सेक्शन है, द सेक्शन इज नोन एज फ्रेंड्स. हमें उससे आगे के नहीं डाइवर्सिफिकेशन ध्यान है, लेकिन वो जो टीचर आए, बीइंग अ टीचर, स्टिल उनको ऐसी चीजें ध्यान में थी. देखो आप, ही आस्क्ड अब्दुल टू सिट बैक ऑन द लास्ट बेंच, गो एंड सिट ऑन द अदर बेंच. अब हुआ क्या वहां पे, वो बहुत सैड हुए, एंड सो वाज हिज फ्रेंड आल्सो वेरी सैड, रामानंद शास्त्री. नाउ अब्दुल कुड सी हिज फ्रेंड वीपिंग, एंड अब्दुल सॉ दैट हिज फ्रेंड वाज लिटरली वीपिंग. वो तो रो रहे थे when he went to the last row. Now this made a lasting impression on Abdul, and later Ramananda Shastri's father called the teacher and he asked him not to spread the poison of social segregation among the children. उन्होंने बोला, आप ये छोटे छोटे मासूम बच्चे हैं, इनके अंदर ये जहर मत फैलाओ, भेदभाव का और जातिवाद का आप ये चीज इन बच्चों के अंदर मत फैलाओ. The teacher felt sorry for his behavior, and the teacher was feeling very sorry for this behavior. Abdul was also greatly influenced by his science teacher. Abdul बहुत ही greatly influenced थे अपने science teacher से, सुब्रमण्य अय्यर, and he learned the lesson of breaking social barriers from him. Now Abdul जो थे वो उनके एक science teacher थे जिनका नाम था सुब्रमण्य अय्यर, उनसे बहुत ज्यादा influence थे. He learned the lesson of what? Lesson of breaking the social barriers from him. वो एक बार he once invited Abdul to his house to have a meal with him. कि आओ और मेरे साथ क्या करो? Have a meal with me. Meal means come have a lunch or dinner with me. His wife being an orthodox Brahmin, wife जो थी अब्दुल कलाम की वो बहुत ही orthodox, उनकी जो थी रामानंद शास्त्री जो उनके फ्रेंड थे वो बहुत ही orthodox ब्राह्मण थी. तो ठीक है, सुब्रमण्य अय्यर सॉरी उन्होंने. Now she was very orthodox Brahmin. Now refused to serve food. She just refused to serve the food. But his teacher served him the food. तो जो उनके टीचर थे जिन्होंने उनको बुलाया था, he says okay, my wife is not serving. ठीक है, कोई बात नहीं, she is a very orthodox Brahmin lady. Okay, I am going to serve it myself. With his own hands, उन्होंने उनको सर्व किया and sat beside him, और उनके पास में ही वो बैठ गए. His wife realized her mistake. उनकी वाइफ को उस मिस्टेक का रियलाइजेशन हुआ and served food to him, और उन्होंने उसको फूड भी सर्व किया. When he visited their house the next time, कब फूड सर्व किया? When he visited the house the next time, जब उन्होंने क्या किया, उनके घर नेक्स्ट टाइम उन्होंने विजिट किया, तो वाइफ रियलाइज द मिस्टेक दैट यस आई वाज मिस्टेकन, एंड दिस टाइम व्हेन अब्दुल कलाम केम ओवर देयर शी वाज द वन हु सर्व्ड द फूड विद हर ओन हैंड. नाउ फॉर हिज हायर एजुकेशन कलाम sought permission from his father to leave Rameshwaram and study at the district headquarters in Ramanathapuram. Now, for his higher education, Kalam ने क्या किया? Sought permission from his father so that they can leave Rameshwaram and study at the district headquarters in Ramanathapuram. His father allowed him to do so. Okay, जाओ, पढ़ो, कोई बात नहीं. He consoled his wife who was emotional about the departure of the child. And generally, mothers जो होती हैं इतना happily they do not say yes. वो आपको इतना happily yes नहीं करती हैं, ठीक है? That you can yes just go and तुम लोग बाहर पढ़ लो, नहीं. Mothers नहीं इतना easily mothers नहीं yes बोलती हैं. So but यहाँ क्या हुआ? So the same thing happened. उनके फादर ने तो उनका अलाउ किया, मदर का मूड ऑफ हुआ, so he consoled his wife who was emotional about the departure of her child, and he told her, quoting Khalil Gibran, a Persian philosopher, who had said that parents are the means for children to become independent, to lead their lives their way. Now उनके जो उन्होंने कोट किया, he told her, quoting Khalil Gibran, एक पर्शियन फिलोसफर थे, उन्होंने एक बात कही थी, who had said that parents जो होते हैं ना, they are the means of children to become independent. Parents के एक means होते हैं children के लिए to be them independent, lead their life the way they want. जैसे वो अपनी जिंदगी जीना चाहे वैसे जी सकते हैं. They don't belong to the parents themselves, and they do not belong to the parents themselves. Rather, parents are the means to give them the permission to let them become independent and lead the life in their own way. So this way we can say कि ये जो हमारा चैप्टर था, My Childhood, it's all about APJ अब्दुल कलाम चाइल्डहुड, जिसमें उन्होंने हमें क्या क्या बताया. APJ अब्दुल कलाम ने अपने फादर के बारे में बताया, मदर के बारे में बताया, the place he was born, क्या उन्होंने स्टडी की, the place where he grew up, what qualities he has from his father and what qualities he has from his mother, where they used to live, उनके कजन क्या करते थे and how he earned his first wage, उनके 3 friends कौन थे, ठीक है, and all these kind of details जो है वो इसके अंदर हमने पढ़ी. Now about 2 teachers we are also going to study, जिसमें एक बहुत ही ऑर्थोडॉक्स सोच के थी, एक थोड़ी सी अच्छी सोच के थे. And wife of a teacher, जब उन्होंने उनको घर पे कॉल किया तो she just made the remarks, और उन्होंने ऐसे बिहेव किया like what, कि जो हम बोलते हैं ना अनटचेबिलिटी, और जो हम कास्टिज्म का एक बोलते हैं, वो थोड़ा सा एक एलिमेंट आया उसमें. नाउ इन सब चीजों से ऊपर उठ के आपको कैसे लाइफ में मूव करना है, हाउ यू हैव टू फ्लाई विद द विंग्स ऑफ फायर. तो ये पूरा का पूरा थॉट इस माय चाइल्डहुड में हमने पढ़ा. ओके फाइन. यस, सो नाउ यू कैन सी द टेक्स्ट. ये देखेंगे स्टैंजा बाय स्टैंजा वी विल मूव. ओके, so see, I was born into a middle class Tamil family in the island town of Rameshwaram. In the erstwhile Madras state, my father, Jainuluddin, had neither much formal education nor much wealth. Despite these disadvantages, he possessed great innate wisdom and a true generosity of spirit. He had an idle helpmate in my mother, Ashiyamma. I do not recall the exact number of people she fed every day, but I am quite certain that far more outsiders ate with us than all the members of our own family put together. Now ये यहाँ पे क्या कह रहे हैं हमारे, ये Abdul Kalam ji is saying that I was born into a middle class Tamil family in the island town of the place that is known as Rameshwaram, which is in the erstwhile Madras state. Now उनके जो father थे Jainuluddin, he had neither had formal education and nor he had much wealth. Despite these disadvantages, उनके पास में एक बहुत ही inborn wisdom था, inborn intelligence थी उनके पास में, and true generosity of spirit, और उनके पास में true generous spirit थी. He had an idle helpmate in my mother, and he was having an idle helpmate in my mother, Ashiyamma, and I do not recall the exact number of people she feed every day. And मुझे नहीं मालूम कि वो exact number of people कितनों को वो feed करवाती थी daily. I really don't know. Now, so many outsiders came and eat with the family members, and we can say कितने हमारे family member नहीं होते थे, all put together, जिससे ज़्यादा तो outsiders आके हमारे यहाँ पे खाना खा के जाते थे, everyone. Now, further it's saying, I was one of the many children, a short boy with rather undistinguished looks, born to tall and handsome parents. We lived in our ancestral house, which was built in the middle of the 19th century. And further is saying that I was one of the many. I was just one out of many short boys, जिनके rather बहुत ही undistinguished से look होते हैं. Now, born to tall and handsome parents. I was born to tall and handsome parents. मेरे parents very tall and very handsome. That is very smart parents. We lived in our ancestral house. That is हम लोग अपने पूर्वजों का जो घर होता है ना, like पेरेंटल हाउस होता है, हम वहां रहते थे. which was built, जो कब बना था? in the middle of the 19th century it was built. ठीक है. It was a fairly large पक्का house. वो एक large पक्का house था. It was made of limestone and brick. It was made of what? Limestone, brick. On the Mosque Street in Rameshwaram. And my austere father means my very simple, strict and very severe, जो मेरे father थे ना, used to avoid all inessential comforts and luxuries. Now he used to avoid सारे inessential comforts and luxuries. ठीक है. In terms of food, medicine or clothes. In terms of what? In terms of food, in terms of medicine, in terms of clothes. In fact, I would say mine was a very secure childhood. In fact, I would like to say that मेरा जो childhood था, it was a very secure childhood, both maternally and materially and emotionally. That is, materially also I had everything, and emotionally I was also very strong and very secure. I had everything and nothing to worry about. So he says that this is one of my childhood thing that I am going to discuss with you. Further, the second war. Yes, so Second World War जो था, the Second World War broke out in 1939 when I was 8 years old. For reasons I have never been able to understand, a sudden demand for tamarind seeds erupted in the market. I used to collect the seeds and sell them to the provision shop on Mosque Street. A day's collection would fetch me the princely sum of 1 anna. Now he further says that Second World War जो था ना, it just broke out in 1939. When जब वो कितने years old थे? When he was just 8 years old. And he says that for that reason, for reasons I have never been able to understand. I've never been able to understand this thing. Sudden demand जो थी tamarind seeds की, वो erupt हुई in the market. And he says for that reason I just used to collect the seeds. मैंने वो seeds इकट्ठे करने शुरू किए. And then उसे provision shop जो Mosque Street में थी, उसमें जाके मैं उसको सेल करता था. And ये करने से एक डे का जो कलेक्शन होता था ना, it would fetch me the princely sum of 1 anna. मुझे कितना मिलता था? 1 anna I used to earn every day. Anna एक old Indian coin है, worth about 6 पैसे. तो he says कि मुझे कितना मिलता था? 1 anna मैं usually earn कर लेता था daily. My brother-in-law Jalaluddin would tell me stories about the war, which I would later attempt to trace in the headlines in Dinamani. Now he says कि मेरे brother-in-law जो थे, brother-in-law saying just wife के husband जो थे, wife के brother जो थे सर. So brother-in-law Jalaluddin, he would tell him the stories about the war, which he says I would later attempt, जो चीजें मुझे information वहां पे मिलती थी, later I used to trace them as headlines in a paper called Dinamani. Our area being isolated was completely unaffected by the war. और हमारा area being isolated, वो usually क्या था? It was completely unaffected by the war. Okay, so he used to trace those headlines in the newspaper known as Dinamani. Now further it says our area being isolated, it was completely unaffected by the war. And हमारा area, because it was isolated, वो completely unaffected था by the war. But soon India was forced to join the allied forces and something like a state of emergency was declared. But soon he says that India जो था ना, it was forced to join करेगा the allied forces and something like a state of emergency जो था वो declare हो गया था. पहली जो casualty थी, the first casualty came in the form of suspension of the train halt at Rameshwaram station. वो क्या ये suspension हुआ of the train halt जो होता था रामेश्वर स्टेशन पे, उसके लिए the newspaper now had to be bundled and thrown out from the moving train on Rameshwaram road between Rameshwaram and Dhanu Sakodi. अब क्या था? पहले earlier the train used to stop there, take a halt over there, तो वो वहीं पे न्यूज़पेपर्स को डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करते थे. बट नाउअडेज क्या हुआ है? ट्रेन कीप्स ऑन मूविंग, ट्रेन मूव करती है, ट्रेन का वहां पे जो एक रुकता था, जो हॉल्ट होता था ट्रेन का, इट वाज सस्पेंडेड. अब ट्रेन वहां नहीं रुकती थी. So because of that reason क्या हुआ, now the newspaper which used to be given or distributed in the Rameshwaram place, but now what was done, जब ट्रेन रामेश्वरम और धानु सगोदी के बीच में होती थी, the newspaper bundles were being thrown from the moving train on the road. Now there the people used to collect them and then further distribute them. Okay, that forced my cousin Samsudin, who distributed newspaper in Rameshwaram, to look for a helping hand to catch the bundles, and as if naturally I felt the slot. Now he says, and because of this reason, there was my cousin Samsudin, तो उनको he was forced to do what, कि अब उन्हें इन bundles को catch करने के लिए एक helping hand की जरूरत थी. So now for this, what he did, if naturally I filled the slot. Now he says, very naturally, I was a person who striked into his mind or who came into his mind, and finally I was the one जिसने उस place को fill किया, and Samsudin helped me earn my first wages, and Samsudin in this way just helped me, and because of him I earned my first wages. Half a century later, I can still feel the surge of pride in earning my own money for the first time. Now he says, Samsudin helped me earn my first wages, and half a century later, I can still feel the surge of pride. तो मैंने क्या feel किया? I just आधी century बाद I was just feeling pride in earning my own money for the first time, because आधी century निकल गई, अब जाके he has earned money for the first time. तो पहली कमाई, पहली तनख्वाह या पहली वेज तो हर किसी के लिए is very important. So the same thing is over here. Now every child is born with some inherited characters into a specific socio-economic and emotional environment, and trained in certain ways by figures of authority. I inherited honesty and self-discipline from my father, from my mother. I inherited faith in goodness and deep kindness, and so did my 3 brothers and sisters. I had 3 close friends in my childhood, that is Ramananda Shastri, Arvindan, and Shiv Prakashan. And all these boys were from the Orthodox Brahman, Hindu Brahman family. Okay, so it says every child is born. हर बच्चा जब born होता है ना, it's born with some inherited characteristics. उनके पास में हमेशा कुछ ना कुछ inherited characteristics आती है, qualities आती हैं into a specific socio-economic and emotional environment. And जब उन्हें train किया जाता है एक certain way में by the figure of authority, तो वो उस चीजों में परिपक्व हो जाते हैं. Now उन्होंने बोला I inherited 2 qualities from my father and 2 from my mother. So what I inherited from my father, that is honesty and self-discipline, and from my mother I inherited the faith in goodness and deep kindness. And he says, so did my 3 brothers and sisters. जैसे मेरे पास हैं ये चीजें, ऐसे ही मेरे 3 ब्रदर और एक सिस्टर जो है उनको भी ये सारी चीजें मेरे पेरेंट्स से मिली हैं. I had so now further he says that I had 3 close friends in my childhood, and the name of the friends are Ramananda Shastri, Arvindan, and Shiv Prakashan. And all these 3 boys, they were from Orthodox Hindu Brahmin family. And Abdul Kalam ji was from which family? He was from a typical Muslim family. As children, he says, none of us ever felt any difference. हम में से किसी को कभी कोई difference feel नहीं हुआ among ourselves because of our religious differences. ठीक है, amongst ourselves. Now, आगे और बहुत हो जाती हैं प्रॉब्लम्स, बट ये रिलीजियस डिफरेंसेस हमारे बीच में कभी भी नहीं आए. नाउ इन फैक्ट इट इज सेड दैट रामानंद शास्त्री जो थे वो सन थे किसके? पक्षी लक्ष्मणा शास्त्री के. और ये पक्षी लक्ष्मणा शास्त्री जो थे ये हाईएस्ट प्रीस्ट थे ऑफ दी, जो हम बोलेंगे ही वाज द हाई प्रीस्ट ऑफ द रामेश्वरम टेम्पल. लेटर ही टुक ओवर द प्रीस्टहुड ऑफ द रामेश्वरम टेम्पल. अभी पहले तो वो क्या थे? ही वाज जस्ट अ हाई प्रीस्ट, एंड इसके बाद में उन्होंने क्या किया? हाईएस्ट जो होता है ना, जो प्रीस्टहुड होता है, वो ही उन्होंने ले लिया ऑफ द रामेश्वरम टेम्पल फ्रॉम हिज father. And Arvindan, he went into the business of arranging transport for the visiting of the pilgrimage, and Shiv Prakashan became a catering contractor for the southern railways. तो आप देखो 3 फ्रेंड्स, तो रामानंदा शास्त्री वो प्रीस्टहुड में चले गए, अरविंदन वो किसमें चले गए, ट्रांसपोर्टेशन के बिजनेस में चले गए। एंड जो थर्ड फ्रेंड थे उनके, कौन थे थर्ड फ्रेंड का क्या नाम था, उनके थर्ड फ्रेंड का नाम था शिव प्रकाशन। वो क्या बन गए, वो एक केटरिंग कॉन्ट्रैक्टर बन गए फॉर वन ऑफ द सर्दर्न रेलवे, फॉर द सर्दर्न रेलवे। व्हाट क्या बन गए, वो केटरिंग कॉन्ट्रैक्टर बन गए। Okay, so during the annual Sri Sita Rama Kalyanam ceremony, our family used to arrange boats with a special platform for carrying the ideals of Lord from the temple to the arranging, ठीक है, वो वहां से लेके जाते उसको from the temple to the marriage site and situated in the middle of the pond called Rama Tirth, which was near our house. And events from the Ramayana and from the life of the prophets were the bedtime stories my mother and grandmother would tell the children in our family. Now it is that during the annual Sri Sita Ram Kalyanam ceremony, जो हमारी family थी वो अरेंज करती थी boats को with a special platform. उस platform जो था it was used to carry the ideals of the Lord from the temple to the marriage site. Now here जो थे यहाँ जो हमारे थे situated in the middle of the house, ठीक है, near situated in the middle of the pond called Rama Tirth, which was near our house, and events जो होते थे रामायणा के and life from the life of the prophet, they were the bedtime stories। और ये हमारी क्या होती थी, bedtime stories होती थी जो हमें हमारी मम्मी या हमारी नानी दादी कोई हमें सुना के सुलाते थे। And he says as per the जो था this would let tell the children in our family। तो ये जो बेड टाइम स्टोरी थी जनरेशन टू जनरेशन चलती थी, आज हमें सुनाई जा रही है, लेटर जब हम ग्रैंड पेरेंट्स बन जाएंगे तो हम फर्दर आगे सुनाएंगे। तो these things are carry on and on, so this would be you be telling to the children in our family। so this was the thing जो उन्होंने बोली। okay, so what we studied till here, we studied about, यहाँ से देखो first stanza में we just studied about who APJ Abdul Kalam is, who was his father, who was his mother, what age is being referred to here, या उन्होंने specific ऐसा क्या किया जो उनके character का feature था। In the second he says that I was one of the many child, what kind of childhood he had, कैसे थे वो childhood में, was he from a rich family, was he satisfied with whatever he had। ऐसे बहुत से questions होते हैं when it comes to you to think about that how are you, ठीक है। नाउ नेक्स्ट जो था फर्दर वो क्या था, सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर ब्रेक हुआ एंड अल्टीमेटली आइसोलेट जो होते हैं, हमें ऐसे कह दिया गया सब अपने आप में रहो, ज्यादा कोई किसी के अंदर इन्वॉल्व नहीं होगा, बिकॉज द वर्ल्ड वॉर हैज बीन ब्रोकन आउट इन 1939। so when I was 8 she said that for a reason I have never been able to understand कि आपस में लड़ते क्यों हैं, ठीक है। तो ये जो पूरा का पूरा जो वॉर ब्रोक आउट हुआ था इन 1939 वो पूरा इसी वजह से था। तो इन दिस ये पूरा का पूरा सिचुएशन चला, इसकी इंफॉर्मेशन पीपल तक कैसे स्प्रेड हुई, क्या हुआ, तो वो पूरा का पूरा इसमें आया। एंड इसी में हमने पढ़ा दैट